This week on the podcast, what we learned about relationships during the pandemic. So stick around. At Things You Should Know podcast, it's our pleasure to welcome you in each and every week. Some of the topics that we discuss on this podcast range from tech to innovation, health and wellness to, yes, unsolved mysteries and crimes. You picked a great day to join us. We've got a great podcast ahead for you. Sit back, relax, listen, and enjoy. Thank you for joining us at Things You Should Know podcast. The pseudoscientific formula that explains most human bonding is basically this: time plus attention plus togetherness equals a relationship. So what happens to humans and their interactions and their interconnectedness, even when two of these key elements, let's say time and togetherness, are removed or even increased? Can digital communication, for example, replace human contact or human communication? How do couples cope with stressful events? What do they do when they encounter, let's call it, a pandemic? This is the focus of a series of studies that's being published. It was done and published by the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships. It was dedicated to several special issues about relationships in the time of COVID-19. Now, let me tell you why I'm talking about this and what we're going to be doing today on the podcast. See, it came to my attention. I know people personally that had, let's call it, some adverse relationship effects of the pandemic, of COVID-19, of maybe spending too much time together. Is that possible? Is that a possibility? What we're going to talk about today on the podcast with a special guest, a relationship subject matter expert, is, we're going to track our relationships. Where are we? What are we doing? Why are we doing what we're doing? How was it affected by COVID? Was it affected by COVID? Did we get off track? And can we get back on track? We're going to answer a few questions for you today, and I believe that this will be beneficial for you if you are in a short-term relationship or a long-term relationship, if you desire to be in a relationship at all, or perhaps you were in a relationship and you were one of the few or the many who were affected by COVID, and this is going to hit home with you very close. So, guys, welcome to the podcast. We have a special guest on with us today. His name is Elim King, and I am going to let him introduce himself in just a minute once I get through some of these preliminaries, but I'm really excited to have him on, and I have a feeling this is going to be a regular occurrence. We have had some really good conversations kind of prepping for this, and I'm excited about where we're going today. In addition to that, I think it's going to add value because, listen, we talk a lot about innovation. We talk technology here. We talk about things that are going to better your quality of life. Of course, we talk health and wellness. And part of your health and wellness, quite honestly, are your relationships. How are you relating to other people, particularly those people that you are maybe in a marriage with or some sort of long-term romantic relationship with? So there's a lot of value here. So please stick around for that. As we get into this, I'll only say this. Please, number one, continue to share our content with your family, friends, loved ones, and associates. In addition to that, if you want to interact with the podcast on a higher level, please go to the show notes and consider using one of our paid platform opportunities there. So, Mr. King, glad to have you, sir, on the
Absolutely.
podcast today. And why don't you introduce yourself to our audience here?
Hey, first of all, I'm excited, man. How you doing, Kelly B?
I am good. I'm good. We've been trying to make this happen the last few days. We
Yeah,
are both super busy folks these days. It would appear.
yeah,
But
right.
we're making it happen.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. First of all, thank you so much for just having me on your podcast this evening. I hope that I'm able to share something that can help motivate or inspire somebody. So Elim King, located here in the transition of Atlanta. So it's hot, it's cold. We don't know what it is right now.
I know.
And so just a little background about me. Like I said, located here in Atlanta, Georgia. Blended family of 6. It's interesting even to be at this space right now. This is not something that I thought I was going to do. I just wanted to get out here and just make as much money as possible, as legally as possible, right?
Right, right,
Somewhere along the line, God just had a different path in that area. So um, somewhere around 2015, based upon some of the challenges that I had inside of my marriage at the time, married 15 years at that point. And so, a friend of mine was like, "Hey, you need to write a book." And I was just like, "Me? I'm the guy that,
mhm,
did some not so good things within my marriage, right? So
right,
nobody's gonna listen to me." And she was just like, "No, you're the exact person that people would listen to." And so, just blindly ran into a moment of just released a book, Understanding a Man, back in 2017, Understanding a Man, empowering women with tools for lasting relationships. So I interviewed 24 men about various topics of the heart, things that if they wanted their daughter to know the real,
right,
right?
right.
And so, because men, we don't communicate the way that we should. Women do about 20,000 words a day. Men do about 5,000 words a day on average. So women are in a higher capacity biologically, even to talk.
Right.
Now you have to enter in the subculture that exists out here. To whereas, don't cry, don't act like a girl, don't be emotional, don't be sensitive, right?
Yeah.
So that was given to us to strengthen us in one aspect, but on the other aspect, when we meet somebody and we love them, right? We don't even know where are we, and now here she wants to talk, and we're like, huh? I don't even know what I'm feeling right now. So
Yeah.
understanding that's the reason why that I wanted to release some of the information. As I looked at a lot of the ladies that I knew from college and things of that nature, and they were just like they wanted to get married and wanted to talk to men, and we were just a little rigid there. So that was that first trip into that. So traveled around the country, doing different podcasts and events to just empower people with the tools for a lasting relationship. Because my mantra is, when things happen in these streets, we're really quick to say, hey, we need to stick together. We need to do this and march and all that. Elam's not the marcher
Hmm.
when something happens. God has placed a talent inside of me to whereas I want to utilize this inside of our community, because in order for us to improve our community, which is the first thing we talk about, right? We need to improve our community. Well, we have to
Right.
improve our families. In order to improve our families, we have to improve the two people who are most important inside of that entity, which is the man and the woman. So I know we're going to talk about a couple of things this evening, but that's something that's super important to me. Have a couple other projects that I've been working on, and I'll talk about them throughout the remaining. But I work with couples right now from a relationship coaching perspective as well,
Okay.
single, pre-marriage coaching, dating, marriage coaching as well. So that's why I was a little late today, just getting off with the client.
Right. Right. Right.
So I just work with couples throughout the country. So man, yeah, just happy to be here. I'm loving it.
Okay. Well, listen, welcome, welcome, welcome. Like I said, I feel like we're going to make a series out of this, just judging from the conversation you and I have had offline. So let me also introduce the audience to you so you know kind of where we are and what we do here on the podcast. What I feel like our audience is here and what we fancy empowering each other through information. And the reason that's important is because we feel like people who are empowered, who are informed, have a greater propensity to make a better decision in their life. That's important because our lives are simply made up of, cumulative decision making. Our qualities
Right,
of life come from decision making. And so the more information we have, the more empowered we can be, and the more informed we can be, the better decision we can make. So, whether it's relationship advice or information, whether it's technology or some sort of innovative new thing that can assist us in doing something quicker, better, more productive, we bring it here in one, for one single goal, and that is to improve the quality of life of our listener. So I feel like we're talking to Elam today. We're going to be able to get into that, improving our quality of life through whatever relationships we have. And so, whether you're single, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're married, short term, long term, it doesn't really matter. This is going to touch you at some point. Maybe there are people that want to be lifelong single people. I don't really know them. But if you're single, you want to be in a relationship, this can help you. If you're in a relationship, you're trying to decide if you want to stay in this or move on to something else, this is going to help you. If you're in the short term, you just got married, this is certainly going to help you in understanding sort of some of the rule book and some of the training, if you will, in order to be a long-term married person. And maybe you're in a long-term marriage and you're looking to keep things alive. We just want to bring you information. We want to empower you to help your relationship uh, become better. So look at it from that standpoint. We've got some questions here that we're going to go over with Elim, and he's going to bring to us a very qualitative and concise and uh, experienced answer, if you will.
Mhm.
And just kind of go back to the top. One of the things that I thought about during the pandemic, and listen, I understand where we are with COVID. As a matter of fact, I'm part of a COVID task force, and I literally just got off of an hour and almost hour and a half phone call with this task force. So when people think that we're post COVID, it's not quite post COVID,
Right.
but let's use it from the context of we're not in the same mode we were in 2020. So we're back being able to touch each other again, and maybe in some areas of the world we can, well, in some areas of the U.S., not have to have a face mask on outdoors and limited inside, et cetera, et cetera. But the point is this: there's something significant happened over the pandemic, over this quarantine, over this lockdown, where couples who normally would not spend as much time together, all of a sudden they were forced to be together. And
Mhm.
let me tell you, it didn't work out for a lot of folks. And that was an eye opener for me, and I'm sure it was for them. So we're going to talk about, hey, what happened there, and how can we take that information and move it forward. So we got a few questions here. We're going to get into it. We're going to start at the beginning. So the first question, Elam, is what are some things that people should keep in mind prior to committing in a relationship? What are some things some people should know? What should they keep in mind? What are we looking for? We're just getting started. So how do we, we know we want a car. What are we looking for?
I want to start off with something that I actually saw today. A friend of mine sent this to me on, I think it was Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And it was a lady speaking, and she said something so profound. So I just want those of you who are looking to maybe get into a relationship, get married or whatever, I want you to think about this. She said, the flower, a flower on, in the ground, right? A flower
Right.
does not think about a bee. The flower, does what it does and maximizes itself,
Hmm.
and then the bee comes.
Right.
So the flower doesn't do what it's supposed to do for the bee. It does what it's supposed to do because that's what supposed to do for it. And I would say that the where I like to start here is the number one most important person inside of a relationship is yourself. But the number one person that I've noticed on average when I'm talking to couples is that the number one person that does not show up inside of a relationship is yourself.
Right.
And for those of you who are not walking in purpose and walking in the passion and where you're supposed to go in life, we tend to attach ourselves to somebody else's expectations and run in a different direction.
Hmm.
So first and foremost, I would say that one of the things that, whether it's COVID or even we can just push COVID to the side, what happens inside of a relationship is that because the first person that you should be having a relationship is with yourself.
Yeah.
Why are you here? What is the reason why, what is the reason why God has you here on this earth? That piece has to be found and should be found first. What do
Right.
most of us do? We do what Elam did. So I'm calling myself out. It was not, go to school and got the grade, went to graduated Hampton University, and I'm just like, okay, well, hey, I'm just gonna get out here and get this money, right? And then all of a sudden, oh, here goes this family. Okay, well, I'm getting a little bit of this money, and here comes this family, and so now I'm working on the family, and so I'm making what people would consider good money, right?
Right.
And then one day, I was sitting on my computer, and the wife and kids were eating dinner, and I'm over here on my computer, and I
Yeah.
said, I put my hands down, and literally it went just like this. I said, this can't be it. And now kids, wife, happy, right? House, they drive this and everybody's good, but I'm not happy.
Right.
And I had to start looking at myself and saying, okay, well, you know what? This can't be it. Even though I see these things that other people would feel like that is a blessing, I'm not showing up for me. And so that's when I went on a journey of discovering more of myself. And in the process of doing that, now, years later, now I'm on a podcast with Kelly B talking about, relationships, where at the time I'm in sales, marketing major undergrad, MBA in project management, MBA in marketing. So that's where I should be going, right? But that wasn't making me happy. And the challenge that exists inside of that is that if you don't find you're happy with inside of yourself first, but then you miss a step and attach yourself to somebody else, you then begin to sign up for their expectations, and you're walking in a direction that you really shouldn't be walking in. But then watch this. Now you're not feeling happy, so you start looking for what? The happy inside of the other. You start looking for your spouse or your mate to create that happy, and that's not possible. So one of the things that COVID did is it poured gas, because COVID is just like a marriage, in my opinion. When you're dating, you probably see certain things that you're like, oh, we'll work on it later.
Oh, no, you see it.
I was going to go there. Or you see it and you're just like, well, okay, right? Yeah. So you keep on going. And you figure that when you get married, right, that, okay, the person is going to magically, deliciously change. No. Marriage pours gas on whatever was going on in the dating space. It pours gas on it. Now, watch this. Imagine walking down that line and then a COVID happens. COVID poured like NASA fuel on whatever was going on, right? And so you already had the marriage doing one thing and you weren't addressing it. And now you had this come along that makes you stay inside of the space. And now you figure out whether you were a spouse or whether you were a wife or a husband.
Yeah.
Right? You figure out whether you were friends or whether you were just operating inside of the space that you guys were doing on a daily basis just for little Johnny. So to answer the question, I say the first and foremost piece that people are missing is the relationship with themselves first, to even know whether the person that they partnered themselves with can even meet the expectation of what you're looking for. Does that make sense?
So it makes perfect sense. And I think I've said this several times to the audience, but I'm in a 25-year marriage. I've been with my wife for 27 years. And I will tell you, number one, what Elim is saying is absolutely true. But I'll also say, and come with the follow-up, I had no idea how to come to an understanding of even what I wanted. I was 25 when I started dating my wife, 27 we got married. I was a kid. I didn't know anything. And the worst part about not knowing something is, one, you don't know that you don't know.
Yeah, and I was going to say that.
You don't think you don't know. No one's going to look for, directions if they don't believe they're lost. And for me, my follow-up question to you to that one is just a few simple tips. We're talking about kids in their 20s now, okay? Because a lot of times people get into their first serious relationship in their 20s. Sometimes it results in marriage, sometimes not. But what would they be looking for? Because I can tell you personally, for me, what I was looking for had absolutely nothing to do with long-term relationship. It had to do with short-term satisfaction. She had this way and that sort of stuff. I wasn't looking deeper. And so fortunately for me, I ended up with my best friend, but I'll be honest, it was fortunate. It was the good Lord just saying, listen, this guy don't know what he's doing. I'm gonna do this for him. Because I could have ended up with whoever, as long as she was cute. I would have ended up with her. And so what I know now, just put it like this, what I know now, looking back at myself in my 20s, I just kind of shake my head and I said, Lord have mercy. The boy, he made it in spite of himself. So what would you say for someone, some simple techniques to be able to identify in a space in their lives where nothing's really clearly defined yet? How can you begin to identify things that you actually want, things that really mean something?
I'm going to answer this in two parts. I'm going to give a unshameless plug. And my next book that I have coming out is called Understanding a Man, Memoirs of a Father to His Son. And so in this particular book, I interviewed 24 men about various topics of, if you had to go back and basically, based upon the question that you just asked, this is what I'm hearing. If you had to go back to your 20-year-old self,
Yep.
but let's take it even further than that. If you had to go back to your, I say the audience is pretty much 13 to 30, right? That young, as a 45-year-old, I'm going to say you're a young adult at 30. Okay.
Yeah.
But you're a young adult at 15 as well, right? Or 13 as well, right? So I wanted to give the gentleman some techniques of exactly what you were talking about. And so in chapter 1, it's kind of like chapter 1 is get purpose or get this money, right? And so, as men, we're taught to just go after, because this is minus the bums and the mama's boys. I can't address them. I'm going to talk about the Kelly B's and the Elims of the world that, we went out here. Our goal was to go do something in life, create a family and stuff like that. Right.
Yeah.
So in that space, when I was a teenager, during that time, instead of more of the video games, there's nothing wrong with the social and things of that nature. That's great. Right. But at this point, really figuring out corporate America, military, entrepreneurship. One of them three, right?
Yeah.
And begin to look at where do you see yourself? Where do you at least see yourself going at? And based upon, and let's crank that back for a second. And I would just ask anybody who is, and you, whether you're 50 or whether you're 15, this is something that you can do, right? Imagine that all your bills were paid. Okay, all your bills are paid, right? Okay, what would you do from 9 to 5? For free? All your bills are paid. What would you do all day long? When you're able to answer that question, okay, that is a direction of where you would want to walk in from a passion, from a purpose perspective, and the talent that God put inside of you. I cannot ball out like Michael Jordan. I can't sit there and just do free throws all day, right? It looks good when if I had the accolades and the money that he got, but I have no desire to do basketball, right? Those people who are just great from a doctoral, let's just go lawyer, whatever case it be. Yeah, the check might be nice, but I don't desire that, right? I thought that I desired sales. I thought that I did, right? Closing deals was amazing to me, felt good to me. I have been doing sales from selling the New York Times at 15 to selling long distance. My team was the one calling your house back in the late 90s trying to give you 5 minutes, right? I thought that was everything to me, right? My check is looking good. I'm in my early 20s. Great, right? And then, but then as time went on, because I got married at 26, not as young as yourself, but 26, and I'm a Kappa. And so, all my friends are still single, and I'm married with 3. Immediately, right? Because I married into my 2 oldest, so I'm married with 3. So I got married earlier. So as my friends began to get married, they would start asking me questions, right? And so I began to give advice, and as I gave advice, I was just like, and they would come back and it would work, and I'm just like, wow, this feels good. All right, we'll just keep on going. And the more that I did that, I literally stumbled into my purpose. If I had to go back to my 15-year-old self, right, I'll begin to ask myself, what do I desire to do? Well, my mother will tell you right now, I always like to run my mouth. I'm probably going to cut you off like 10 times a night, so don't get mad, right? I'm just, that's that, but I like to run my mouth. So she was always like, well, you're going to be an attorney one day because you like to run your mouth. Years later, I'm running my mouth now, but I'm receiving monetary from it, and I'm feeling a love that comes from it. It's not just about the monetary. So, the first step would be to think about what would you like to do all day long. And if it's 2 or 3 things, go after those 2 or 3 things, one step at a time. And Martin Luther King said it best. You don't have to look at the whole staircase. Just take one step at a time in the direction of, and then see what the feedback is. Right.
Yeah.
And so the addendum to that I want to put is that based upon, I would like for you to really look at your level of spirituality, because we have to understand that along this journey, there are going to be trips and falls, and there are going to be different things that happen to us along the way. And it might look like that the path of where you're going, that it's difficult, whatever case it be. And I'm sharing with you right now, this is a journey that's going to be difficult, because the devil's here to kill, steal, and destroy. So how dare you, 13-year-old? How dare you, 20-year-old? How dare you, 30-year-old, or even 50-year-old, start walking in a direction that's going to allow you to bless other people on this earth? because your talent is here to bless other people. So the path to go in that direction is going to be difficult because the devil doesn't want you to get to it, because once you get to it, you're going to mess around and bless God's people. So the path is going to be difficult. So even in chapter 13 of that book, I kind of talk about the pitfalls and the things you're going to run into, and what would you say to your younger self about some of the obstacles that you run into. So a tip here would be, know that obstacles are going to come. So understand which direction, or begin to walk in the direction of where you want to go in from a purpose perspective, right? Mm-hmm. Connect that with your spirituality, right? And know that you're going to have obstacles going in that direction. If you could just get those two down, those two right there, right? There's no suicide, right? Because you know tough times are coming. Right? So you can connect a little bit more and just be like, you know what, I'm going through this tough time for a reason, right? I specifically want to make sure that I say that, because sometimes when we're going in the direction of what's something that's important to us and we meet obstacles, we want to stop, whether that's in your relationship or whether that's just in your relationship with yourself. So I want to give those two as the step one and step two, focusing on that purpose and moving in that direction and connecting that with your spirituality.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing I'll say about that before we go to the next question, my paradigm has shifted very significantly since I got married, and adversity is on the menu.
Inevitable. Sorry, I like the way you put that. It's on the menu, and it's going to stay on the menu.
Yeah. You know, some of us get it for the appetizer, others get it for the dessert, but it is on the menu.
Yes, sir.
And it's necessary, quite honestly,
on the menu. And can I give me a second? Can I say something about that?
Yeah. No, go ahead.
When I say it's necessary, it's actually necessary to fine tune you in the direction of where God wants you to go.
Right. I was going to say a few different words, but I can.
So I was going to cut you off like 10 times. So that's number two.
It's fine because we're flowing, and I think the audience gets the point. It's necessary. So what I would say, from a person that's been married quarter century, is that be receptive to adversity, not just in your relationship, just in life. It is okay to fail. It is not okay to quit.
Come on.
If you look at failure as an opportunity to start over with more information, quitting is not okay. The only way you're going to not get to your goal is if you quit. If you fail, it's fine, because you can get up and continue and do it again. And life is like that. So your relationship is like that. I think if you're a young person, one of the things I would say, I would tell this to my kids.
Right.
And I actually said this to my daughter at her wedding. My daughter just got married last year, and part of my
congratulations, man. I forgot about that. Oh man, watching her from she was in the pageant, and now she's married. That's crazy.
She's married, homeowner, the whole 9 yards. So one of the things I told him was, and I feel like this is very significant as well, and you're going to have to grow into this understanding. You're not going to have this understanding at 25. You don't have enough life yet to even, you're just going to have to take my word for it.
Right.
And that is this: take responsibility for your own happiness. Take responsibility for your own happiness. Do not put the pressure on another person to make you happy. There's no such thing as somebody completing you. That's just a bunch of Hallmark, we're going to sell some books kind of stuff. What I'm telling you is, you are a spiritual being. You can and will complete yourself. The
I'm about to jump through this microphone.
Within yourself. And when you are able to do that, you're empowered, and you are in a relationship. You bring that happiness, you bring that energy to the relationship. Don't take, bring. And if you can do that, just change your perspective on that. I think you'll have a much better footing starting off. Yes, sir.
Oh man, listen, because I was about to jump through the microphone where you went just then. And this is my statement. Let me just start off by saying that real life scenario. Of course, I was working in sales. I was at MCI, so I had to date myself. If you don't know MCI, you're not grown. All right. So I was working for MCI, doing the long distance thing, right? Okay, and then all of a sudden, I couldn't stand what I was doing, right? And I was getting up, and I was going from Decatur to exit 9 up 400 every morning. Do that math, right? It was an hour.
Okay, so here's the thing, though. We have listeners in
Right,
Australia and in
right.
Africa and Indonesia, so they don't have any idea. You have to
Let me
tell
tell
them how
you.
far that is.
Oh, now it's about 35, maybe 40 miles, right?
One way.
But I'm talking one way. Thank you. One way. I would leave at 6:15 in the morning, right? I was walking through the door at like 7:45. Okay. Right? Every day, right?
Yeah.
And that's average. During Christmas time, when I would come home, and so we would get off at 5:45. I would go. It would leave at 5:45. I was coming in the door at 7:50. So this is every day now, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm saying that to say that I was super unhappy. So what would I do when I would get home at 7:50? Right? I'm looking for my spouse, because here's the thing: everybody starts a day. It's like you got a full tank, a tank of gas, right? Okay, so throughout that day, right, that tank is slowly going down, right? And so when you're operating inside of the things that you don't really want to do, that tank goes down, that happy tank goes down really fast. And then what we accidentally do is we go home, well, I'm married to this person. Well, this person should complete the happy that I need. And it's not possible. It is not your boyfriend or girlfriend, and it will not be your spouse's responsibility to make you happy. That's your responsibility. It's your spouse's responsibility to complement the happy that you've already created inside of yourself. So step one, like we were saying earlier, you got to create that happy by yourself. And I always say that, you want to look at it as 75. You're responsible for at least 75% of your happy, which means that if we look at this from a grade perspective, because those of you who are hopeless romantic and say, okay, bring to relationship, as you were saying earlier, kind of like a 50-50 or whatever, that's not realistic. We have to start getting rid of this stuff, because think about it. You don't even show up for you as much as you should. Right. You got a person with a whole nother brain, and you expect them to show up with their whole 50, and they're not going to do it every time. So this is what happens when they don't show up, but you've brought only 50. You've only brought half of the happy. Well, if we were in school, Kelly, what's a 50?
It's not passing.
It's an F, and that's how you live an effed up marriage. Okay, yeah. But if you come with the majority of your happy at 75, right? If they don't show up, you got to see you're okay. You're doing okay, right? Yeah. If they show up with only 5% of themselves for you, that's an 80. That's a B. You're good, right? So we have to look at that. I just wanted to accent that, Kelly, because I thought that was very important, of that word happy, because people like, I broke up because, such and such didn't make me happy. That wasn't their job.
Yeah, I so many things are misunderstood, misinterpreted, intentionally misinterpreted for other agendas. And I think as a young person, we have to understand, if you want to be successful with this, you need to understand your role in this, because this is your life. And so it will do you a great service to investigate, to explore, to ask questions. If I was going to buy a house, I would find someone who currently owns a house. And I would ask them as many questions as they would allow me to ask them. And then I would begin to surmise how I could become a homeowner. So many times we get information, bad information, I'll call it, from social media and things that are not really real. And we're basing our life decision on things that don't even exist. So as a young person, what I would tell my kids are to do their homework, basically. So let's move into the second question, because I feel like we could really run on for 3 hours. So,
yeah, because I was about to go one more. I had one more point on that. I'll bring it up later. It's all good.
All right. So here's one of the things I think a pandemic, a quarantine, forced people to do. And people who are not good at this or who already had issues in this area, it just became more exacerbated. And you talked to it a little bit earlier, and that
Mhm.
is communication. More than likely, one of the best, or I'll say like this, more than likely, one of the most profound, one of the most important pieces of any relationship. I don't care if it's your supervisor, if it is, your chairman. If you're in some sort of relationship with another human being, you are forced to communicate with them. And I would say, based on my experience being on boards, being in workplaces, being professional, and even being married and being a father, I've been most effective when I clearly, concisely communicated. So let's talk about this. What, how, when, how important is communication in a relationship, and why is it so important in a relationship?
Let me put that down because I can get lost. How and why? Okay. I take notes, and hopefully, those who are listening, you probably want to take some notes. It's particularly in this space because, um, you know, the top three reasons for divorce: number one is infidelity, number two is finances, and number three is communication. And
Okay.
number three and number one bounce back and forth between what is the number one and the number three reason. Number two, finances, remains the same. All right.
Okay.
So communication is normally the bigger reason. And the reason why that I say that is because, of course, I do coaching services. 90% of the people that call me because of communication. All right. And when do they normally call me? They call me when it's fourth quarter and 2 minutes left in the marriage game, down by two. It's only 2 minutes left and you're down by 3 touchdowns. And nobody is Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Could you win that game?
Mm-mm.
Yes, Tom could. He almost showed us like a couple of months back, right? Almost,
Yeah.
but he ain't do it. All right. But could you win that game? Yes, but it's going to be very difficult. Okay. So everybody's grown until it's time to communicate. When it's time to communicate, everybody takes their ball and they go home and they expect the other person to figure out their ball. Let me
Right.
share just a quick analogy that I like to use. Kelly, you had kids. You heard of Nickelodeon, right?
Oh
You
yeah.
ever heard of that show called Blue's Clues?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
All right. Blue's Clues, for those that don't know, Blue is a little dog, right? And he's got like all these clues that are like on there. And like he's got to like figure out the puzzle and put everything together. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The little clues, simple little words and stuff like that. He has to figure it out. Right. So it helps teach children how to
Yep.
figure stuff out with their cognitive thinking. Right. Okay. Blue's Clues only works on Nickelodeon. It does not work in relationships. You cannot expect the other person to sit on down and figure you out, because that's what marriage is all about. That it does not, it will not happen if you do not openly express. And this is for and I'll particularly say for those that might be in a tenure status like yourself, Kelly, to whereas sometimes 25 years out, we might think, well, we've been together for 25 years, so we should
Yeah.
understand each other. Well, let me share something with you that normally happens. One of the bigger percentages of when people get divorced is when their children go to college. Why is that? Because once you got married, little Johnny became the focus. Because when you were dating, remember, it was about the two of you, right? But
Yep.
one thing that we have to understand, biologically, there's actually a hormone that's inside of you that once it's mom, dad, and kid together, the goal becomes the child.
Right.
Biologically, hormonally, and that's Mother Nature's way of protecting the child to make sure that you focus on the child, right? Makes
Right.
sense. Raise little Johnny, right? The problem is 18 years later, when little Johnny goes off, and now you're empty nest, and now you've been together 18, 19 years, so you should know each other, right? But guess what?
No.
You don't know each other because your love languages have switched one or two times. So you can't even get back to loving the person the way you used to because they don't even want to be loved like that no more. So now the goal has left the home. And now if you two don't know each other, aka COVID, you're home, right? You have to
Yep.
know each other, right? Now you're like, oh my gosh, we've been together all these years. They just don't understand me. They don't want to understand me. But you stop focusing on each other. Communication, speaking about how you need to be loved. So when we say, why is it important? Because you're going to change. So that if you do not give the other person a chance to sign up for who you are, you're going to indirectly, consciously and subconsciously hold that person accountable to the conversation that you're having in your mind,
Right.
but you're
Only
not
with
having
yourself.
with them.
Yeah. You're only having this internal conversation, and you have it for a long time. I was in
Yes,
that
sir.
space in my late 20s and 30s where I was very regretful for things that I thought I should have, that my wife should be doing for me, and things were not happening. And it was easy to point the finger and blame.
Right.
Fortunately, I did have a paradigm shift, and I began to understand. And here's the thing. Here's the thing, and I think this is really where your spirituality comes in. This is where your mindfulness and understanding who you are as a creator comes in. Consider every consider every situation through, look at it through one lens as you are creating it, because you are. You
Right.
don't know it, but
Right.
you are.
Right.
You're creating every situation. So, example, if I come home from work, like you said before, I worked all day, I come through the door at 7:45. If I'm jovial and happy, chances are the people in my house will be jovial and happy. If I
Right.
come in throwing stuff around and I'm upset and I'm just, anxious and screaming and doing whatever, then I'm going to get the same result from my environment. My kids are
Set a
going to go
whole
to their
tone.
room. My wife is not going to, I shouldn't expect a whole bunch of intimacy that night because she don't know what's going on with me. So, you
Right.
know, I was in that space, but I wasn't aware of what I was doing to myself.
Right.
You own this. So
Right.
leaving the relationship because somebody's not doing something for you and going somewhere else. I'll tell you what Eckhart Tolle says and what I've heard said so many times. Wherever you go, there you are. So you can leave here and go there. And if
And you're
you're
gonna be
still
there.
there and you're still that same person, the chances are you're going to get the same result. So, what I'm encouraging you to do, as folks who listen to a podcast like this, who are inquisitive type A's and logisticians in terms of being able to logically take a game plan and just put it into operation
Right.
and scientifically determine whether it works or not, do this.
Right.
Do it for 7 days, do it for 10 days, do it for 30 days, and notice the difference. Go inside, decide what you want, and then play that out. Play it out. You're not currently happy, you're not currently jovial, but assume it anyway. And then provide that, because really you don't get what you want. You know what I'm saying? Elim, in the universe. You don't go to the universe. Universe doesn't speak English. Universe doesn't speak German. Universe feels your vibration, and
Right.
you don't get what you want or what you ask for. You get who you are.
Yeah. And
You
I
get who
think
you
that
are.
one of the things that if I had to speak to the question that you said earlier, but then tie that into even this moment is, gentlemen, and I just, ladies and gentlemen, period. You don't know everything.
Right.
And as Kelly said earlier, you don't know what you don't know. And growth is a continuous process. So this comment is for the 15 and the 12-year-old. This is also for the 65 and the 75-year-old. Because remember, Abraham had to redo his whole life at 70. So I used to say that to my dad, like, you can miss me with the I'm grown and I'm old and set in my ways. Well, Abraham was 70 and God gave him a vision. He told him to look at the stars and count the stars, whatever the case it be, because he had to recreate himself.
Right.
And he went 70 years thinking he can't have children. My wife is like 90 something, right? So I can't have kids. And so you have to look at it. So what was God at that point? God was a mentor, right? Somebody that
Mhm.
was able to kind of grab a hold of and just kind of see down the road. I think that mentorship is one of the most amazing free things that we
Yeah.
don't take advantage of. And I'm talking
Agreed.
about not because here's the thing. You brought up the fact about buying a house. Here's the thing. When those of you who are houses are selling like crazy right now, right? Most of you got real estate agents, right? Your real estate agent is a mentor. They're showing you where to go. They're taking what you are and where you want to go, where you want to be, and what do? They go find what that is, or they help assist you with that, right?
Yeah.
So, when everybody knows about coaching from a sport perspective, they're taking your talent and helping you to maximize it, right? Well,
Yeah.
inside of relationships with yourself and with somebody else, you need to have mentorship. The maid of honor and the best man, people don't really realize this. They actually have a job. I know you picked the girl that you grew up with.
Yeah, your
I know
best
you
friend.
picked your homie. But those are two people. If I had to recreate that area, because I do a pre-marriage course, and this is one of the things I talk about, is that you can have somebody as on your court, but you have to think about your marriage is the biggest financial, emotional, and business situation partnership that you actually make in life, right, with the person.
Mhm.
And so you have to have a board of directors around you. Everybody knows to have a preacher, right? Right. That's if you tell them the truth, right? But what
Right.
if you had somebody who that you can be in counsel with, and they can be in counsel with as well. So the job of those two people is to be your counsel. So my question is, it says in the Bible, a wise man remains in counsel. Who's in your counsel? Because you don't know everything. And so to answer your question of why the communication is so important, because we can see what happens, and so we can look at the how we can do that. We can have a mentor. There's somebody already in your camp right now that could be a mentor for you in your relationship, not only with yourself or with your spouse,
Yeah.
right? And if they're not, then I need you to go to the higher power, whether it's the universe, whether it's God, whether Allah, whatever, whoever you worship, and have that conversation with them, because God wants to give you the desires of your heart, but you got to talk to, you got to, watch this, communicate
Right.
what you want, and
Yeah.
then that can go down to the person who you're with.
Yeah. 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 100%. One of the things I will say, when I first got married, I was not someone who communicated very well, and God bless my wife, because um it just lots of stuff that I just assumed she would just know, she would just
Right,
do.
right,
And here's the other thing for me personally, I came from a home where it's just a single parent home.
okay,
So I didn't have the type of example, for example, with the married mom and dad. My dad was killed when I was younger, so I didn't see a couple. Now I saw my grandparents. I didn't live with my grandparents. I saw uncles and aunts. I didn't live with them. So what was I basing my life on? I don't know. Just TV, Hallmark cards,
yep,
people I
yep,
knew.
yep, all of
And
that
what was my wife
subculture.
basing? Yeah, what was my wife? She lived single parent too. So we
Hmm.
got in this relationship and we didn't clearly define what it is that we wanted. And we fortunately were good enough friends, because you don't really even know. We're not going to get into it tonight, but to think that 25-year-old kid knows what love is just, it's
Oh,
just,
fall in love and get married. I want to drag all of the hopeless romantic people out in the
yeah,
street and just like leave them there. But like, no, you're not ready for a relationship because that's not
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
But
I love, well, yeah, look, we're not even going to talk about that on,
no,
we'll
no,
say
no.
that for
I want to
season
give you the
2.
flip side of from single parent for you. But guess what? My
Mhm.
parents in June of this year, 50 years married. So all I knew was two people together. I had single parent friends, right?
Yeah,
But and so my wife was single parent too. So I did just like you, just to say that, just for those that might just think, because I want to throw you the rope of just saying, hey, just because you were single parent, I was two parent, and
yeah,
I thought the same way you did.
right, right. The point is this: you would not go to your car dealership and expect for them to have the exact car you wanted pulled around front when you showed up, because they
Come
just
on.
don't know. You have to explain what it is that you want, preferably before you get married, to ensure that the other person can either provide and wants to do this. The point is this: if you want to be in a long-term relationship, or if you want to be in an effective relationship, let's not even call it long-term. Communication is the key that's gonna really keep you going.
It's everything.
Uh,
Everything.
it
It is
really
everything.
is. My relationship has gotten, over the years, when I begin to understand that, and I begin um to do more inward work.
Oh, I want you to rest right there for a
Yeah,
second, sir. That's that right there.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
Because
because
no,
that's
because
really the key. Because if there's a takeaway, and we'll sort of end around here,
right.
and we'll, because we got a list of questions, and we're already almost at an hour, and you can see how this can go. But if
Yeah.
there's a takeaway today, and you're listening through this, it is the inward work. It is yourself
Yes,
that
sir.
needs to be conditioned and questioned and thoroughly gone through before you bring on someone else, because you won't be the same person 5 years from now, whether you're in a relationship or not. You won't
Nope.
be. You
Nope.
certainly won't be the same person 20 years from now.
No, sir.
And you need to understand that and what that means. So if you're changing, guess what's happened to the other person?
They're changing as well.
They are changing as well. And their requirements are changing, who they are, what their desires are. Maybe you married somebody that was afraid of flying, and then 20 years later, they want to travel the world.
And
Well,
it could be
that's
a
your
faster or
prerogative.
slower rate. They
Yeah,
could change 5 times. You might only change one and think you better.
exactly.
That you the one to keep changing. Well, I mean, hey, anything that does not change atrophies, aka dies. So just because
Right.
they change 5 times and you only change once, it does not make it any different. I want to
It's
just
their
put that disclaimer
prerogative,
out
just
there.
like it's your prerogative. One of the things I've had success with when I begin to understand it is, number one, and guys, we talk about it on this channel a lot. That is meditation, mindfulness. Your self care is
Oh,
probably, not probably, the most important part of
most.
maintaining this healthy relationship.
Yes,
Because
sir.
if you're healthy, if you are well, if you're in a good frame of mind, you can provide all of that to your partner.
Yes, sir.
You can provide that to your partner. You won't have to come in and say, "Hey, can you make me healthy? Can you make me whole? Can you make me
Yep.
happy?" Because they can't. They can't, because they don't know how to do it. Number one,
Yep.
they're trying to see how to make themselves happy. So
Come
again, we're
on.
back to core one. Take responsibility for your own happiness. One of the things I saw in talking to people who got divorced over COVID, and because I know probably three people personally,
Hmm.
one of the things that was consistent was, number one, their relationship was kind of hanging on the thread as it was. And to your point, COVID just came in and snapped it, because it made them spend more time together, and they could not hide behind the
Nope.
office
Couldn't
visit.
do it.
They couldn't hide behind the cheerleading practice
Hey,
anymore.
traveling, those people who had
Yeah,
traveling saved their marriage thus far.
traveling
You know what I'm
saved their
saying? Because the
marriage.
moment that travel stopped,
Yeah, yeah.
boom.
It's like the Michael Jordan effect. Once you retired, had to come home, you like, oh Lord, I can't even do this. So that was number one.
Right.
But number two, it was them not being able to communicate.
Yes,
To
sir.
communicate. And the last thing, but maybe even the most important thing, is that they didn't really know themselves. So I think if you start at knowing yourself,
Man, we need to go like 2 more hours, sir. Come on,
I,
sir. Come
I'm
on, let's go.
saying, man, I'm saying,
We got
I'm down for it. I want to spark it out, because I know what it takes in order to consume this. Because to be honest
right,
with you, if you're a young person, or if you're in early stage of a relationship, or you're in a relationship that you're thinking about getting married, these are things that
right.
you should seriously consider.
Yes, sir.
Okay, when I look back on myself in my 20s, and I think, what would I tell myself, to your earlier point? What would I tell myself to do to ensure the best I can? Because nothing's
Right,
100%, but the best you can. I would say to do more work on myself, to understand myself more. It's less to do with the other person, because I believe this, and I'm going to turn it over to Elim and let him close this out with some closing thoughts. But if I'm telling my kids this, if I'm telling my 20-year-old self this, it's the same message.
right.
Understand yourself more, dig deeper into who you are, be fair to the other person by being the best person you can be. And then you will get, I believe the universe brings to you, you attract who you are. You will attract, when people say, I can't find a good man, I can't find a good woman, or something's wrong with the people that I date, this, I want to tell them so bad, it's really not the people,
Come
it's
on.
you. Is
Come on.
you are attracting to you a like energy. You know, if you're not into metaphysics, you need to get into it. If you're
Right.
not into law of attraction, you need to understand what that means, because you will pull to you exactly the same vibratory
Come on.
reflection of yourself.
Right.
And you need to understand that. And there's nothing wrong with that. We got to own that, because once we understand it, we can change it. You, if you're not going to own it, and you're going to give that to someone else, then it's never going to change. But once you own it, you say, okay, I am a creator, and so I'm creating things that I don't want. All I have to do is change the way that I think, and then I can create things that I do want. So, sir, I'm gonna let you kind of close us out in some closing thoughts and set us up for part two, because definitely we're gonna get to part two.
Um, so first of all, Kelly, thank you so much for just even having me on the show tonight. I hope that we've shared something, but there's more to follow, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I want to highlight just one point. Inside of doing the coaching services that I do, one of the things that I recognize is that when people call me to have counseling, on average, most people attend so that the counselor can tell the other person what they need to do in order to be right in the relationship. That's why they come. They're like, I'm just here so you can tell them what to do.
Ego.
And they don't realize that one of the techniques that I do is our first two conversations I do individually. I don't do together, because there's three types of relationships that's going on, right? There's the relationship with Kelly. Then there's the relationship with Nicole. And then there's the relationship with Kelly and Nicole.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you have three different relationships that are going on. You have to be able to manage those, right? And so sometimes that person needs a moment, right? Sometimes you need the moment. Sometimes grace is necessary. Sometimes sitting down and having communication is necessary. And so, understand that at the end of those, those who are currently not married, over here, there is a space to whereas there has to be a collaboration between your brain and their brain. And it's kind of like you have to come whole and they have to come whole. So they don't complete you. They're not your better, you can use better half in the lightest term, but not in the fact that they're the other half of you. No, they're the other whole of you, because you came whole. So that's the reason why that you find yourself first, and then you can be found, and then you can go look to find.
Yeah.
It's literally rude to want to commit. I know the teeth is nice, and I know the sex is good, and all that good stuff. But it's literally rude if you haven't found yourself. And I'm not talking about that you have to be 100% at the end. I'm talking about you're in stride, right? Because remember, you're
on the path. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're at least going in a direction so you can see if they qualify. I like to use the example of, one of my line brothers. He was an emergency room doctor. He worked 1 week on and 1 week off, right? From 7 at night to 9 o'clock in the morning. All right. So guess what? If he hooked up with a lovely lady, looks great, got a lot going on for her, but she's a quality time love language person. Guess what? 2 weeks out of the month, you will be passing ships. You get home at 5, he gone at 7. He's not going to be at Lil Johnny's recital a lot. You see what I'm saying? So who are you signing up for? What are the capabilities? And based upon where the direction that you want to go in, do they qualify for where you want to go? So that comes from finding yourself first, and then you can be found. Because here's the thing. If you don't do that, then there's a toxicity that can move into the marriage, right? Of now you're in this committed space, right? Or even you guys could be living together. There's a toxicity that can build, and there's resentment that can build because you don't know yourself and you're trying to attach yourself to somebody else. Or you're finding out yourself and you're seeing that it's not right, but because now you got kids together, you got a house, and you're not married yet, but you're like, oh, maybe I'm just going to hang on in there and they're going to change. But you see that they don't qualify for you. So I know, Kelly, as we move forward, one of the things I want to talk about is, the toxicity that can exist. What's the question of a couple actually turning that area of toxicity around in marriage?
Yeah, I think that's important. We'll start there on our next installment with Elim. Elim, thank you so much for sharing with the audience, sharing with us your experience and being very transparent, because that's key. My grandfather used to say all the time, he's like, it ain't but two ways to do something. So if you do something wrong, that ought to open up the open up your eyes to how to do it right. And many times we are afraid to make mistakes, and more than that, because we live in this ego-based society, we're afraid to even let people know we've made mistakes. Mistakes are
Right.
part of everyone's life. And if you are single or you've been divorced or whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. You can always start again. And so our goal here is to provide you with information to empower you to do that a more productive, more proficient way the next time, should you choose to do that. So relationships are part of life. Relationships are part of life. We talk to you all the time about your health and wellness. This is part of that. And I hope you have learned something today. We are going to bring Elim back. I would like for you to share this with, a family member, a loved one, an associate, someone who you think would like to hear this type of content. And also make sure that you comment on this, which is going to be on our Facebook group and our Facebook page. Certainly would like to hear your comments. And if you have any specific questions that you want us to ask Elim directly, you can do that. Now, we'll also, Elim, put your company information on our website as well as the
Right.
Facebook page. So if people want to reach out to you, if people are
Right.
interested in getting counseling, they can do that as well. But is there some information you can give us right now if they want to reach you directly? How would they do that?
On social media, all things Elim B King. So whether on Facebook, whether on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Elim B King.
And we'll put
Twitter.
in the show notes. We'll put in the show notes. All you have to do is page up on your device. Our most, believe it or not, I go through these stats all the time. Our most common listening device is not a mobile phone. It's a second. Ours is Amazon Echo. Believe it or not, man, Amazon.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
People are cleaning the house and listening to Things You Should Know podcast, I guess, or cooking or whatever.
Okay. Shout out to the person vacuuming right now. We hope we gave you a little stride in your step. And you can also
all you have to do is just kind of page down a little bit beneath our logo there. You'll see the show notes where you can join our newsletter and you can take advantage of some the paid platform, etc. We're going to put Elim's information there, link to his website, to his Instagram, social media, etc. And if you want to reach out to him directly, if you're interested in counseling services, he can help you as well. But again, we're going to have him back. One, I appreciate you guys for listening all the way through. Thank you so much for tuning in to Things You Should Know podcast. We're going to be back in about 48 hours with another great episode. So make sure you tell someone they should be listening to Things You Should Know. Thanks, guys. Have a good